The mahogany conference table in my uncle's law office had been set up like a corporate tribunal. I walked into the sterile room to find my entire family arranged in what could only be described as an intervention formation. Uncle Marcus sat at the head like a judge, my parents flanked him like prosecutors, and my cousins served as the jury. I'm Isabella Torres, though my family had taken to referring to me as our niece who's having some struggles at their social gatherings. At 28, I was apparently the family disappointment for choosing to build a tech company instead of following their traditional path into law, medicine, or finance. Isabella, thank you for coming, Uncle Marcus said, gesturing to the single chair facing the assembled group. His corner office overlooked downtown, all glass and steel, a monument to the success he'd built with Torres and Associates, the family law firm. I settled into the chair, noting how they'd positioned me like a defendant facing judgment. My phone sat face up on the table beside me, volume turned up as always for business calls. In 3 hours I had a board meeting with my investors. In 6 hours the biggest announcement of my career would go live. But they saw my casual clothes and assumed crisis. We asked you here because we're concerned, my mother Elena began, her perfectly manicured hands folded like she was delivering bad news. About your startup, about your future, about these risky decisions you've been making. My father Carlos nodded gravely from his seat. Mija, we've been patient. We understood you needed to explore this tech phase. But it's time to face reality. Tech phase. That's what they called Quantum Dynamics, the artificial intelligence company I'd founded 4 years ago. They saw me working from coffee shops and assumed I was playing entrepreneur while burning through savings. My cousin David leaned forward, his Harvard law ring catching the afternoon light. The numbers don't lie, Isabella. Small tech startups have a 90% failure rate. It's not personal, it's just statistics. And the market is saturated, added my cousin Maria, fresh from her MBA program. AI companies are a dime a dozen now. Without serious backing or connections, it's almost impossible to break through. If only they knew that quantum dynamics had quietly revolutionized machine learning for 3 of the world's largest tech corporations. But they heard artificial intelligence and thought I was building chatbots in my apartment. Uncle Marcus stood up, assuming his courtroom stance. We've arranged this meeting because tough love is sometimes necessary. Your startup is clearly failing and it's time to cut your losses. The irony would have been funny if it weren't so painful. The family that prided itself on logic and evidence had never bothered to research what I actually did. They saw me decline their job offers and assumed desperation. I've spoken to Judge Harrison about a clerk position, Uncle Marcus continued. It's entry-level, but it's a foot in the door. Real legal experience with real prospects. My Aunt Carmen nodded enthusiastically. And my hospital always needs administrators. Healthcare is stable, Isabella. It's not like these risky tech ventures. My phone lay silent on the table, but I knew in exactly 17 minutes, my life would change forever. The Forbes announcement was scheduled for 3:47 p.m. Pacific Time, and the advanced copy was already sitting in journalists' inboxes worldwide. We're here because your startup is clearly failing, Uncle Marcus declared with the finality of a court verdict. Time for tough love. Time to accept that not everyone is cut out for entrepreneurship. My parents exchanged meaningful looks. Mom dabbed at her eyes with a tissue she'd apparently prepared in advance. We've discussed this as a family, Dad said softly. We're prepared to help you transition back to a more stable career path. Cover your apartment for a few months while you get back on your feet. Back on my feet. I bit back a smile, thinking about the $847 million in venture funding sitting in Quantum Dynamics accounts, or the acquisition offers I'd been declining for the past 6 months. The tech bubble is bursting, David added helpfully. Anyone with sense is getting out now before it gets worse. Maria pulled out her tablet, displaying charts and graphs. I did a market analysis. AI startups are dropping like flies. The smart money is moving to traditional sectors. They'd done a market analysis of an industry they didn't understand, looking for a company they'd never properly researched, reaching conclusions that would be hilarious if they weren't so wrong. Isabella, Uncle Marcus said, sitting back down and leaning forward with practiced sincerity. We love you. That's why we're doing this. Sometimes family has to step in when someone can't see their situation clearly. My phone rang. The sharp tone cut through the intervention like a knife. Everyone turned to look at the device vibrating against the mahogany table. I glanced at the caller ID and smiled slightly. Right on schedule. Excuse me, I said politely. I should take this. Isabella, Uncle Marcus protested. We're in the middle of a serious conversation. So am I replied, answering the call and putting it on speaker. This is Isabella Torres. Miss Torres. This is Jennifer Walsh from Forbes magazine. The voice filled the room with crystalline clarity. I'm calling with the most exciting news. Congratulations. You've made the Forbes billionaire list for 2024. The room went dead silent. Every face around the table froze in identical expressions of shock. Uncle Marcus's mouth fell open. Mom's tissue fluttered to the floor. David's Harvard ring clinked against his water glass as his hand trembled. Based on our independent valuation of quantum dynamics and your personal holdings, Jennifer continued, oblivious to the drama she was causing, we've assessed your net worth at $3.2 billion, making you the youngest Latina billionaire in American history. I watched my family's faces cycle through confusion, disbelief, and slowly dawning comprehension. The story goes live in 15 minutes, Jennifer added. We've already received calls from 3 major networks requesting interviews. Your assistant said to coordinate through you directly. Thank you, Jennifer, I said calmly. I'll have my PR team send over the official photos and background materials within the hour. Wonderful. Miss Torres? Our readers are particularly excited about the exclusive on your AI breakthrough. The applications for autonomous vehicles alone could reshape entire industries. The technology speaks for itself, I replied, watching Uncle Marcus grip his desk as if the world had tilted. I appreciate Forbes recognizing the potential. Of course. We'll speak soon about the cover story feature. Congratulations again, Ms. Torres. This is extraordinary. I ended the call and looked around the table at their stunned faces. Sorry about that, I said conversationally. You were saying something about my failing startup? Uncle Marcus opened and closed his mouth several times before managing to speak. Billionaire list? 3.2 billion, I confirmed. Though that's based on Friday's valuation. The acquisition offers I've been fielding could push it considerably higher. Mom's hands flew to her throat. Acquisition offers? I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my emails. Microsoft, Google, Apple, and Tesla have all submitted formal proposals in the past month. Tesla's offer alone was $4.7 billion for a 60% stake. David's Harvard confidence had completely evaporated. But you work from coffee shops. You drive that old Prius. I work from coffee shops because I prefer the energy to corporate offices. I drive a Prius because it's environmentally responsible and gets excellent gas mileage. I stood up, straightening my jeans and hoodie. I also happen to own the building that houses 3 of those coffee shops, plus a portfolio of renewable energy investments worth approximately $400 million. The silence stretched on until Maria found her voice. The market analysis. I said AI startups were failing. Some are, I agreed. The ones built on hype without substance. But quantum dynamics holds 47 patents on machine learning algorithms that will power the next generation of autonomous systems. Our technology doesn't just predict market trends, it creates them. Uncle Marcus slumped back in his chair, his authority deflating like a punctured balloon. Isabella, we had no idea. No, you didn't. Because you never asked. I walked to his floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the city skyline that would soon include buildings owned by one of the companies courting my technology. You saw a young woman working unconventionally and assumed failure. You heard startup and thought risky venture, instead of revolutionary technology. My phone buzzed with a text from my assistant. 3 more interview requests, including 60 minutes. Also, the mayor's office called about the Economic Development Council position. I showed them the message. The mayor wants me to head the city's technology initiative. Something about attracting more innovation to the region. Carlos found his voice first. Mija, we were just trying to help. Help. I turned back to face them. You staged an intervention without researching my company. You offered me entry-level positions while I was building billion-dollar technology. You assumed failure based on appearance rather than evidence. Aunt Carmen spoke up hesitantly. But you never told us how successful you were. Would you have believed me? Or would you have assumed I was delusional? I sat back down, facing the tribunal that had suddenly become an audience. Besides, I thought actions spoke louder than words. Apparently I was wrong. My phone rang again. This time the caller ID showed Goldman Sachs. "Excuse me," I said, answering and putting it on speaker again. "Isabella Torres speaking." "Ms. Torres, this is Patrick Chin from Goldman Sachs Private Wealth Management. We've been following the Forbes announcement, and we'd like to discuss managing your portfolio transition. With holdings of this magnitude, you'll need specialized strategies for tax optimization and investment diversification." "Thank you, Patrick. Have my assistant schedule something for next week. We'll need to discuss the foundation planning as well." "Absolutely. Congratulations on this remarkable achievement, Ms. Torres. We look forward to working with you." I ended the call and looked at my family. "Foundation planning. I'm establishing the Torres Innovation Foundation to fund STEM education for underrepresented students. Initial endowment will be $200 million. The number hit them like a physical blow. Maria actually swayed in her chair. $200 million, she whispered. "Education was always important to this family," I said simply. "Now I can do something meaningful about it." Uncle Marcus leaned forward and I recognized the look in his eyes. It was the same expression he used when preparing to negotiate a settlement. "Isabella, clearly we misunderstood your situation. But now that we know what you've built, we should discuss how the family can support you." "Support?" I raised an eyebrow. "Like offering me clerk positions and hospital administration jobs?" He had the grace to look embarrassed. "We could be helpful in other ways. Legal counsel, financial planning, family connections." "I have excellent legal counsel, thank you. Cravath, Swain and Moore handles my corporate work, and I have specialized IP attorneys for the patent portfolio." I stood up again, gathering my things. "As for family connections, I'm building my own network based on innovation rather than tradition." My phone buzzed with another call. This time I just glanced at the screen before declining. "Sorry, that was 60 minutes. I'll call them back later." The casual way I dismissed a call from one of the most prestigious news programs in America seemed to finally drive home the magnitude of what they'd missed. "Isabella," Mom said softly. "What happens now? With us, I mean." I looked around the table at these people who'd raised me, guided me, and ultimately underestimated me so completely. "Now we learn what family really means," I said quietly. "Not people who assume the worst when they don't understand. Not people who offer help they think you need instead of asking what you've actually built. But people who support each other based on love rather than judgment." David spoke up hesitantly. "How do we do that?" I smiled for the first time since entering the room. "You could start by asking about my work. What quantum dynamics actually does. What problems we're solving. What impact we're having on the world. And we could stop assuming you need our guidance," Uncle Marcus added with something that might have been humility. "That would be refreshing." I walked toward the door then paused. "By the way, the judge position and hospital administration job? I appreciate the thought, but I'm a bit busy reshaping the global technology landscape." As I reached for the door handle, my phone rang one more time. The caller ID made me smile. "This should be interesting," I said, putting the call on speaker. "Isabella. This is the President's Science Advisor. We've been following your work with artificial intelligence applications for climate modeling. The President would like to discuss appointing you to the National Science Foundation Board. Are you available for a call with the White House tomorrow?" I looked back at my family's stunned faces one more time. "Let me check my calendar and get back to you. I might have some time between the Forbes photo shoot and the Senate subcommittee hearing on AI regulation." "Perfect. We'll coordinate with your staff. Congratulations on the remarkable recognition, Ms. Torres. The country needs innovators like you in leadership positions." After I ended the call, the silence stretched for a full minute. Finally, Uncle Marcus spoke. "Senate subcommittee? They want my input on regulating artificial intelligence development. Apparently, when you hold patents that could reshape multiple industries, lawmakers want to understand the implications." I opened the door then turned back one last time. "Sunday dinner at Mom and Dad's house this week?" Mom nodded eagerly. "Of course, Mija. Good. But no more interventions. No more assumptions. Just family dinner where we talk about what we're actually doing with our lives." "And Isabella?" Dad called after me. "We're proud of you. We should have said that first. I smiled genuinely. Thank you, Dad. That means more than you know. 6 months later, I sat in the executive conference room of Quantum Dynamics' new headquarters, a gleaming tower that had become a landmark in the city's skyline. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see construction beginning on the Torres Innovation Center, a collaboration between my foundation and the local university. My assistant knocked on the door. Your family is here for the board meeting. I looked up from the acquisition proposal I'd been reviewing. Tesla had increased their offer to $6.2 billion, but I was leaning toward the partnership model instead. More impact, more control, more fun. Send them in. Uncle Marcus entered first, carrying a legal briefcase but looking far less authoritative than he had 6 months ago. He was followed by David and Maria, both of whom had joined my legal and strategy teams respectively. Mom and Dad brought up the rear, grinning like proud parents at a graduation ceremony. How are the preparations going? Mom asked, settling into the chair beside me. The Senate hearing went well. 3 committees want to adopt our regulatory framework recommendations. I pulled up the news coverage on the conference room screen. And the foundation awarded its first round of scholarships yesterday. 200 students starting STEM programs this fall. David leaned forward with genuine interest. What about the autonomous vehicle partnership? Signed this morning. Tesla, Ford, and Toyota are licensing our core algorithms. The first fully autonomous cars should hit the market within 18 months. Maria smiled. The market analysis I did 6 months ago aged well, didn't it? Like milk, I agreed, laughing. But you've learned to research industries before analyzing them. Uncle Marcus opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick contract. The foundation bylaws are ready for your review. I have to say, creating a legal framework for $500 million in annual giving is incredibly complex. But worth it, Dad added. When I see those scholarship recipients, I understand why you built all this. My phone buzzed with a familiar notification. Another Forbes alert, this time about the 40 under 40 list I'd apparently made as well. I showed them the screen. Number 1, Mom read proudly. Our daughter, number 1 on the Forbes 40 under 40. Our niece, Uncle Marcus corrected with a smile. The one who was clearly failing 6 months ago. I stood up, walking to the window that offered a panoramic view of the city I was helping to transform. You know what I learned from that intervention? What? Maria asked. That sometimes the best business strategy is letting people underestimate you. It gives you space to work without interference. I turned back to face them. But family is different. Family should see your potential even when you can't see it yourself. And sometimes, Uncle Marcus said quietly, family needs to learn that success comes in forms they never imagined. My phone rang again. This time the caller ID showed, Nobel Committee. I looked at my family's expectant faces and smiled. Should I put this one on speaker too? The unanimous yes that echoed through the room told me everything I needed to know about how much had changed since that intervention 6 months ago. Some lessons I'd learned are best taught with Forbes lists and perfectly timed phone calls. But the most important lesson was that real family doesn't just celebrate your success. They learn to recognize it in the first place. And sometimes the greatest victory isn't proving people wrong about you. It's teaching them to see you clearly and then watching them become genuinely proud of what they discover. As I answered the call from Stockholm, I realized that the failing startup my family had tried to save was actually saving them. Teaching them that love isn't about controlling someone's choices, but about trusting their vision even when you can't see where it leads. The billionaire list was nice. But having family who finally understood what I'd built, that was priceless.